This is an in-depth review of the PlayStation Vue service using the PlayStation console, a Roku, the Logitech Harmony system integrated with Google Assistant, and if this then that, to rope it all together. If you're watching on YouTube, you can click on any of those icons to skip ahead to that portion of the video. What we're looking at right now is the PlayStation console with the PlayStation Vue app. First thing we see are the user profiles, which we'll take a little bit of a look at later. The first thing you notice when you log in to the PlayStation Vue app is that we've got a live video feed playing in the background. This is something that's exclusive to this console and we don't see on other platforms. What we can see though is a nice timeline or a card view of live TV, and we can jump into the more option menu to see what else is on. This view is a tile view of everything that's playing right now live on television. So we can see the logos for our channel, we can see the description of the show, and a little preview. And jumping into the show starts to play pretty quickly. I'm on an Ethernet connection here, but I'm sure a fast wireless connection would provide similar results. So we can see a little bit of information here on our show. At the top right, we can add that to our shows. And what that does is automatically record the show or DVR the show anytime it's on. In this case, it's a movie. So if it's available to watch on DVR later, we'll be able to do that. And that's all stored in the cloud with the PlayStation Vue service, something that's really interesting. So if we go into the navigation on the left, we can see a little bit more. We're looking at My Shows right now. We were looking at TV shows earlier, and the My Shows displays that we have indeed added Star Trek to My Shows. Under the channels, sports, kids, featured, we see everything that's playing now or things that might be available on our cloud DVR service or even on demand. As you can see, I've been playing some shows for my daughter already, and those are saved in the cloud service. When we go to Explore, it's a really interesting way of actually exploring and finding new shows. So if we want to find some comedy, for example, and we want to see something that's under a half hour, that's something that we can do. We can change the length, obviously, to one of many options, but then if we want to see something a little bit more adult-oriented, we can do that. What's nice here is that while I have seen a few of these shows, some of them I have not, and I know that they may fit into a specific type of genre or space that I'm interested in as far as comedy is concerned. So it's already got a show in here that I'm familiar with, and that's something we'll take a look at later. So another thing that's useful is the guide here, and this is, again, exclusive to the PlayStation console. Coming from a TiVo, it leaves a lot to be desired. I'm used to the interface being a little bit different with the shows on the left and the time slots at the top, but it is quite fast and quite responsive, and that's something that I appreciate from this. So if we want to jump ahead, scroll all the way to the bottom, we don't get to see that far ahead, but when we do, the shows load very quickly. And on this fast scroll here, it only takes a couple of seconds for everything to catch up, much faster than what I'm used to on a TiVo service. As we jump into shows, when we find something that we like, we now see our options to add those to our shows. And there are shortcuts like the L1 button that adds something or goes to your shows. There are shortcuts to add things directly to your shows from the controller, though. Our settings screen is a little bit more robust than others, but still pretty straightforward. We can see our subscription. This is the Elite. Still running a trial, but I'm definitely going to be jumping into this. The only difference between this and the service above is the inclusion of HBO and Showtime. Our device settings, not a lot to be seen here. Automatic logins and disabling the inactivity timer. Probably something that you wouldn't want to do, because if you're inactive, you don't want to be eating up all your bandwidth. Aside from that, there's not a whole lot different on this interface than you might find on a PlayStation application like the PlayStation Store. If you want to search for a show, this interface is very familiar for PlayStation users, so it may take some getting used to those who have not used a PlayStation before and maybe trying this out on a new PlayStation. or the more likely scenario of a family member who is not used to using the PlayStation and is now using this to watch their television. So another piece that we want to take a look at here, if we go into the menu, we can see that we've got a few options of skipping forward, rewinding. On a live show, it doesn't actually work the same, but we can rewind. One of the nice things here is that we do get to see the show as it's rewinding. This is something that you cannot do on other platforms, and we'll take a look at that later. This has been one of the main concern for my family coming from a TiVo is that we used to be able to skip commercials. Now there's a little bit of guesswork involved if we're not using the PlayStation itself. Jumping into other live TV, we can, we can use the forward and backward controls, but it does have to be loaded. A little bit better example here is jumping into a show that is on our cloud DVR. We can skip forward as much as we like here, and there aren't any issues. The speed is capped out at 32x, and I find that typically good enough to jump through our commercials in a couple of seconds here. But again, it's something that you'll have to get used to, or if you're not coming from a TiVo service, something that you're probably already used to. So not a lot that we're looking at here that's different from most cable boxes. And once we are done with the PlayStation Vue, really it's just hitting the PlayStation button on the controller to get out, and we're done. We're not worried about it streaming in the background, using any more bandwidth, and we can just put the PlayStation into rest mode, power it off, and we're done. Now this is something I'm really fond of here.
Okay, Google, watch cable.
Just told my Google Home device essentially to change the input to cable, which is my Roku. And we'll take a look at that setup later, but the Roku starts up. I can see my profiles, and the interface is similar, but not the same. We don't see that same overlay on live TV, but the menus are the same. The search is fairly straightforward, but not the same as a PlayStation interface, but maybe more similar to what people are used to on a cable box. The results turn up just the same. With a show, we're able to see the channel, the seasons, and then when we jump into that, we can actually see a little bit more of the VOD content, DVR content, and then catch up, which I believe is anything that you may have missed within the past 24 hours that was not set to record. And that can be on different channels. So we go back in live TVs here. Scrolling left on all of these rows actually enables us to view everything in that category rather than just favorites or featured items. But this is the view that is essentially our guide. This view is familiar from what we saw on the PlayStation, but there is no actual guide. So that's something that you may have to get used to. I prefer this over a traditional guide. I like having a little snapshot preview of what the show is. So things load pretty quickly in here. We can jump between shows. Trying to skip forward, though, it's an option that it gives us, but it doesn't actually do anything. So when we saw this on the PlayStation console itself, it wouldn't give us that option. So anyway, jumping back here, we can see more of our shows. We can jump into things pretty quickly, and it's just a clean interface and a nice way to see what's on live. So with the Roku, there are some hidden options here. We can pull out this panel that lets us see what's available through the Roku system. In this case, it's just really closed captioning and not a lot else. There's a night listening mode also. It's not the most robust options menu, but as far as captions concerned, that might be all you need to see here. So we'll scroll through and try and find some content that's playing live right now where we can see the captioning option. So we'll check out Top Chef. Always has some quality content on Bravo. And there we go. You can see the captioning. Now, there aren't a lot of options around the captions other than turning them on or off. So we can't change the background color, the font size, anything like that. I know other services you can. I believe Amazon Prime you can. I think Netflix you can also. The default option there is just to display it on replay, so I'll just leave it at that. Other things that you can see on the screen just show information. Again, not too much around here that we can do. And then accidentally sometimes we hit the home button instead of the back button, and it takes us all the way back to the Roku screen. So a little bit of annoyance. It's harder to make a mistake like that on the PlayStation with the controller, but again, we can jump back into our shows pretty quickly. So just skipping through this interface here, it's all pretty familiar. You can see all your channels just the way you saw all of your shows, as well as your live TV. Then jumping into our settings, there's not a lot we can do in here. We can see our profiles, but really we can't manage our account like we can on the PlayStation console. That's just something that's exclusive there. And the menu at the bottom here is just the same as the menu that we've seen up top. So now we've jumped back out here just to start the application fresh and take a look at the profiles. So primary, secondary, profiles there. We jump into my daughter's and we can see that we've got recently watched shows, my shows that have been saved, channels that have been saved. And outside of that, there's not really a whole lot that's different. It's just more of a personalized experience for each of the users in your household. So now we can also switch by clicking on that user's name and then go into one of the other profiles. We see star for more info at the top, and that's essentially something you can use from almost any screen. On the PlayStation, this is a shortcut. For example, adding to my shows that is right on the controller, so you don't have to dive into as many menus. But for here, it's just a nice way to be able to see any of those extra items that may not be in any of the other menus that allow you to favorite a show, remove a show, or any of those other options that you saw there. Now what I'd like to do is show you what I'm trying to achieve with this whole setup. So these are the devices that I am using and have been using. We've got the Roku, Harmony, TiVo, my receiver, which everything goes through, the PlayStation 4, and that's the whole setup. Now the Roku sitting next to the TiVo, you can see there's quite a big difference in footprint. And aside from having storage within the TiVo itself, as opposed to a cloud DVR, there's not a lot different that I can't do with the Roku, with the PlayStation Vue setup. Additionally, the PlayStation 4 does provide that functionality, but the Roku is what works with my Harmony system. And so I want to dive into why I want to use the Harmony system as opposed to just using the PS4. But first, let's take a look at some apps. So this is what we have as far as the Vue mobile experience. It's very similar to the Roku itself. There's limited functionality as far as jumping into your accounts or the interface showing you a live preview, but it's very familiar to that Roku experience, and I can imagine the experience that you'd receive on another set-top device. So you can jump into your shows, you can see channels, live TV, sports. Everything here is pretty much what you'd expect. The search functionality, again, a little bit different on the interface, but still retains everything else. And then if we want to actually watch something on our TV, we can connect to our Chromecast very quickly and just immediately select a show and hit play. And then it shows up on the TV. So nothing really different there for users that are used to Chromecast. Our Chromecast app shows us what's playing, and our PS Vue app shows us the actual show that's playing. A little redundancy there, but again, nothing that's really too bothersome. If we want to watch it on our phone, we just disconnect from the Chromecast, or if you're not connected in the first place, no reason to press any extra buttons there. The load time's not too bad. This is over a Wi-Fi connection, and we can see that we quickly jump into our higher definition, high resolution there. Not too long of a jump time. The control functionality isn't anything that you really feel there's anything missing from. You can skip ahead, you can rewind, pause, all of the functionality you'd expect. Some things work better on a DVR or a recorded show rather. The other piece of functionality there is just to add something to your favorite shows. Add, remove, pretty much does the same thing here as it does everywhere else. So we close out and we get back to our main menu. So we'll take a look at our settings here. We can see it's still fairly limited as it is on the Roku, as we'd expect. Now if we want to check out our cloud DVR content, we jump into My Shows. We can easily jump into any content and view it right away. A little bug that I did notice is that when I tried to scrub ahead on a show after it was playing, it actually jumped to a point where I had previously paused on another device. Not a big deal because the second time around we were actually able to scrub forward to where we wanted on the show, and that's the same type of functionality we'd expect on the Roku. Obviously you don't get to see where you're scrubbing, but that's okay. Another slight annoyance here is that when I tried to back out of it, it was still playing in the background, and I found that I actually had to click the close button to stop everything from playing. But again, very minor, and since it's on a mobile phone, we'd be able to close it out. So now I'd just like to take a look at what we can do to integrate the device with the Google Home. So If This Then That is the application that we use to integrate. We've got a lot of different things that you can use on here, but focusing on Google Home and Harmony, I can do a lot of things with this. Within the app here, we can trigger to change the input to cable. Previously, this was going to control my TiVo, and the activity was called Watch TV. Now I've got an activity called Watch Roku. And basically, when I give a voice command to OK Google, watch cable, it will switch to the correct inputs and let me know that it is changing the input on the TV. Now, if we want to get to the point where we're actually modifying the activity, that's something that we have to do in the Harmony app. But just illustrating here that we can set up multiple different activities and associate those with different commands that can be activated by voice. Within the Harmony application, we can take a look at the setup. So this has already been set up, and we can look in here. There's different things that you can do to modify the activity. The start sequence here just highlights that we want the TV to be on, the receiver, Roku to be on, which is manual, the inputs for the TV, and the input for the receiver. Nothing really too confusing here. Everything should be easy to set up. Can't change the Roku in that portion. Where we can change things though is in the starting channel, and this is what makes it powerful. If we want to watch cable and our cable is PlayStation Vue, then the channel we want to start is Vue. But if we want to start watching a movie and HBO Now is our source for movies, then we can set up a command for that and link it with If This Then That. And that's really it. So this is the solution that works best for me. Let me know what works best for you in the comments. Thumbs up if you like the video, and happy tinkering.